This is Barbara Moat, and this is my video journal for hypothesis, correlation, descriptive statistics table, and then I've chosen a Pearson critical value as my post hoc test. I've taken the 504 testing data, and I have filtered it down to 11th and 12th graders because most of them have taken the biology and the English 1 test. And my hypothesis is to check on, are there similarities, say if a student had a high English 1 score, if they were presumably a strong reader, would they also do equally as well or a correlation to their biology test score? And my null hypothesis would be that there's not going to be a correlation between the two subjects, English and biology. And a couple of things I've done, I sorted the data. I went ahead and pulled up, because my computer does not enjoy this data today. It's very slow, it gets hung up, but I think it's the scatter plot. I went ahead and ran my scatter plot, and I can see there's a positive linear relationship because I want to make sure that I'm checking for linearity under my assumptions. I did have a random sample of students. I did select only the students who had taken both the biology and English tests. It's normality of data, independence of observation, so I have checked my assumptions. My null hypothesis again is going to be there's not going to be a correlation between the students' English and biology scores. I checked for linearity here with my scatter plot. I see it. I also see 4 pretty extraordinary outliers. And so I've highlighted those over here to the left. And you can see the 4 that I highlighted. After I did this, I would probably go back, if I were doing this in the real world, I would go back and have a discussion or a debriefing or an investigation of those outliers. First of all, particularly on these two, these students did relatively well in their English tests, but both scored a 0 on the biology. So I would question that. I probably would go in and throw those 4 pieces of data where I show 0s on biology or English 1, I would throw those out. I'm going to leave them in just for today's demonstration though. But I still see some linearity, and so I feel like possibly there is a significant correlation between the two, the English and the biology. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, again, my null hypothesis is there is no relationship, no correlation between the two subjects and the test scores. I went ahead and copied the common zone and the rare zone to see where, when I pull up my critical value, where that's going to land. I know that anything in this area, in the common zone, I'm going to accept the null that there's no correlation between the two subjects. And then the next thing I did, I went ahead and I have 136 student pieces of data, students that took both the biology and English 1 exam. The degrees of freedom, I subtracted 2, so now I have 134 degrees of freedom. The next thing I did, I went to the Pearson critical value table that I found online, and I went down. I had 134 students, so I just went ahead and took this number for 100 students with a p-value of 0.05. So my critical value of correlation significance is 0.195. And when I plot that, on my common zone chart, you can see that the negative 0.195 and positive 0.195, the rare zones are going to be on the two tails a little further out than what you see diagrammed here, but I went ahead and marked those right there. And so if my p-value falls within this area, so this area here or this area here, I know I've got a significant correlation between biology scores and English 1 scores. The next thing I did was I ran the correlation, the Pearson correlation test. And I got a value right here between biology and English of 0.623660506, a big number there. And so a couple of things. That's what I would call, possibly a moderate strength. I showed a positive, somewhat linear correlation with a moderate strength. But when I go to do what I'm calling the post hoc verification test using that Pearson critical value based upon the degrees of freedom, and I'm looking at that target number of 0.195, I can see that 0.62 would be right in this area right here. And even if it were a negative, it would also be over here. And because of that, I'm going to accept or fail to reject the null hypothesis because it's falling within this common zone. And so based upon this particular Pearson correlation analysis, I would accept the null or fail to reject the null. Had my correlation numbers fallen out here, I would have rejected the null, but because it's well within this range right here, I'm going to accept the null, that there is no correlation between 11th and 12th graders, English 1 and biology scores. There's not, I can't say, because the student was a great reader, he's going to do really well on the biology, or whatever they made on English 1, they're going to make a similar score on biology. So there's not a strong correlation between those two subjects.